Fast forward to episode 9, and J.J. Abrams half-heartedly attempts to throw TLJ's haters a bone, while simultaneously going out of his way to try to placate the 17.5 jeckified hook-asses who didn't seem to mind TLJ. Some of the lesser elements that weighed that last movie down were either minimized, summarily ignored, or summarily dismissed. Not to mention that it had the impossible job of paying tribute to Carrie Fisher while tying up its loose ends. And suffice it to say, not having seen that movie in theaters either, or at all, it doesn't matter how well it's handled, it still feels like it's an extremely poor taste. In both this video and my review of The Force Awakens, you may also notice that I haven't said very much about Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, or Leia Organa, but I have a very specific reason for why, and that's because the sequel trilogy has no idea what it wants to say about them. Despite behind-the-scenes claims to the contrary, at the end of the day this isn't really their story. Han, Luke, and Leia don't get any screen time together as a group, and Lando Calrissian is just a last-minute cameo to fill an obvious void. And though I'm not against the idea of Leia using the Force, the simple fact of the matter is that the sequel trilogy doesn't do anything to earn or even warrant her needing to use the Force. And considering the astronomical amount of problems the last two installments had stacked against it, and based on Abrams wanting to ape the original trilogy, you might as well have just done what the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy does with Peter Parker on a regular basis and leave her on the sidelines in favor of characters no one cares about. Which is pretty much what happens anyway, but for entirely different reasons. And Carrie Fisher's absence, by the way, happens to be the reason why I haven't seen either episode 8 or 9 in theaters. It's also why The Force Awakens holds the distinction for being the only movie in the sequel trilogy that I've seen in theaters, and why I had to push my review of Force Awakens back by 3 years. But Star Wars The Rise of Screwitall wasn't an apology for The Last Jedi, nor did it do anything remotely meaningful with any of the ideas established in The Force Awakens. The idea of having a character who's an ex-stormtrooper becoming a Jedi, that sounds pretty badass. Unfortunately, like with Puke Skywalker, Ruination Johnson decided that Finn wasn't worth his time, and The Rise of Screwitall seems to wish that TLJ didn't exist, and apologizes constantly for referencing that movie at all. So the only payoff we get from Force Awakens and Rise of Screwitall is that Finn is generically Force sensitive. Whatever. And I haven't even gotten started on the ways this sequel trilogy tries to bring itself full circle with the busted-ass return of Emperor Palpatine. I have several questions. First of all, why? Why in the entire, absolute, ever-loving, jeckified name of fuck is this manipulative, ass-nosed creep still alive? And how, also in the absolute, ever-loving, jeckified name of fuck, is this creep still alive?
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to...
No. Answer the question, motherfucker.
One of two things is going on here. Either Palpatine found a way to clone himself, or I'm really supposed to believe that Darth Sidious is strong enough with the dark side of the Force to survive falling to his death from a damn chasm and being blown the fuck up on an exploding space station. But for the sake of everyone's collective sanity, let's pretend that this Palpatine is actually a clone of the real Palpatine. The Emperor didn't actually come back from the dead, so this is a clone. Okay, then why in the absolute is this clone so damn dilapidated and fragile? I guess Palpatine's just not as good at cloning people as the Kaminoans are. Otherwise, you would think that this clone would look like a weird CGI cross between Hugh Jackman and Matt Smith. And please don't look it up. He can do all of this wacky, nonsensical politricking bullshit, from initiating the trade blockade to the instigation of the Clone Wars, and he can shoot lightning out of his motherfucking fingertips. But apparently making a perfect clone of himself is just too damn much for Darth Sidious. Yeah, okay, sure. Second of all, why did Palpatine create Snoke? And that's not just a meta question. What's the in-universe justification for creating Snoke? What was the motherfucking point if you're just gonna try to take over by the end? And I have no idea why he created the Force Dyad either, but then I don't know why Palpatine does any of the things he does in the Star Wars saga in the first place. So trying to understand Clone Patine's motives for doing anything may as well be a wild bantha chase. What in the absolute for example, was the ever-loving point of that 16-hour countdown? I get that the original Darth Sidious is vain and probably doesn't care about the law, but why would you announce your presence like that? All you're doing is giving the Resistance/Rebels more time to get the drop on you, irrespective of their numbers. And before anyone tries to tell me that it's an intimidation tactic, let me remind you, vanity does not make you intimidating. See the aforementioned Victor Von Doom in damn near everything that we've seen him in. You can't have your death sticks and smoke them too, Sheev. Also, I'm not so sure if you can convince me that the events of this busted-ass film take place over 16 hours. First of all, that's not how time works, but second of all, this movie has too many moving parts, new locations, and fake-outs for me to believe that only 16 hours have passed. And then there's his connection to Rey Palpatine. Really? You motherfuckers couldn't make her Kenobi granddaughter? You had to go with the stupid-ass option? Whatever. So Rey, this super-duper Force-sensitive junker woman, is Palpatine's granddaughter. And apparently, for 10 to 30 years, nobody could track this woman down. Okay, so let me make sure I understand this correctly. You expect me to believe, in the 30-plus years that Vader and Palpatine have spent running the galaxy with an iron fist, no, not that iron fist, A, this cackling faggot had time to give someone a child, who then went on to have a daughter, and B, that he was able to hide the fact that he has a son, let alone a granddaughter, from Darth freaking Vader? No. Just no. 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 No, 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 no. Did I mention no? No. Hell no. 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 I refute. No. Absolutely not. Never. I don't buy that for one parsec. This d********** hook-ass wears his entire belief system, not to mention his arrogance, all the way up to his skin. You are telling me the worst practical joke in history if you expect me to believe that Palpatine is in any way, shape, or form clever enough to keep something this monumental a secret from his own apprentice, who, need I remind you, has an incredibly high tolerance for the Force, and as Darth Vader, the dark side of the Force. Motherfucker, please. That has got to be one of the stupidest ass things I've ever heard since John McClane found out that his son works for the CIA. I've already written half a paragraph on the missed opportunities surrounding Rey and Finn, and there's not really a whole lot for me to say about hotshot pilot Poe Dameron. Except, please, for the love of all things sacred, stop trying to make these two motherfuckers gay for each other before you mess around and get someone killed, you ignorant ass, uncultured clowns. How and why you people got so fixated on this busted ass fanfiction I'll never understand, but it's archaic nonsense that needs to go away. We already have enough of this pandering bullshit in our entertainment as is. It does not belong in Star Wars. Ever. To paraphrase Huey Freeman from Season 2 of The Boondocks, you're not advancing a struggle by pandering to a demographic that doesn't understand Star Wars, so cut it the fuck out, you nasties. But as long as we're talking about getting people killed, there's a subject that's hard to ignore. I know, I'm halfway through discussing the sequel trilogy and I haven't even addressed all of the issues surrounding the second main character of this trilogy. And arguably, the reason Reylo makes no fucking sense whatsoever as a concept. Ben Solo / Kylo Ren. Somewhere, Anakin Skywalker from Attack of the Clones is looking at this fool and thinking to himself, dude, what the fuck? Chill out, homie. Yes, you heard me. Attack of the Clones Anakin is the second to third most annoying motherfucker in the galaxy, and even he thinks that this motherfucker is off his trolley. That's how you know your villain is whack. And much like with Khan Harrison, don't make me kung fu your ass! And much like with Khan Harrison, the only way I can justify Kylo Ren's actions is to chalk it up to him being bipolar. Like Ben Solo has a split personality disorder we're not talking about. Of course, I would say that, except that would imply that J.J. Abrams had any idea what the hell he was doing when he designed this character. And this time, unlike with Palpatine, I can't even fall back on the excuse of because reasons, because as far as I can tell, The Last Jedi doesn't provide a reason. And just as an even bigger middle finger to the audience, the ending to this movie is incredibly tone-deaf at best, and half-assed at worst. Seriously, Rey Skywalker? Give me a fucking break. Just as a quick reminder, Kylo Ren has spent this entire trilogy trying to kill Rey and Rey's friends, killed his own father, tried to kill his own mother and his uncle, not to mention all of the Resistance, all because he wants to be the next Darth Vader. And Rey, who is essentially a Super Saiyan with all the cheat codes, has spent this entire trilogy futzing around on random-ass planets, looking for a sense of purpose. Yet, we're expected to believe not only that these two people would have a thing for each other, but that they should be a couple. Galactically Stupid doesn't even come close to describing this. But the Reylos, Mr. Nitro. Think of the Reylos. Look, I really couldn't care less what the Reylos want. To this day, the fact that the Reylos are even a thing confuses the hell out of me. There is no universe in the films or the expanded universe, past, present, or future, where this relationship makes any fucking sense whatsoever. On that note, Rey, in her infinite wisdom, decides to bury Luke Skywalker and Leia Organa's lightsabers on Tatooine. Specifically, the Lars farm on Tatooine. Rags from every frame of pause continually makes the criticism of why is this place not a museum, referring to the Lars farm. This is, after all, the home of Luke Skywalker, the Jedi rebel who helped defeat the Emperor and destroy the Sith. I would follow that question up with, why the hell do people still live on Tatooine? With the amount of bullshit that happens on this planet and the 30 plus years that have passed since the fall of the Empire, you would think that Tatooine would be one giant no zone, or at the very least a demilitarized zone for civilians. That seems like the next logical step. Come to think of it, I'm surprised this planet didn't get vaporized when the First Order started up Starkiller Base. I'm not even sure why Tatooine even still exists anymore. And don't even get me started on the Lars farm either. Fuck a museum. Why is this farmhouse still around? Need I remind you, sand gets everywhere. Sand gets everywhere. Sand is not a stationary object. Mud is not a stationary object. And this farmhouse is essentially a huge-ass sandcastle that doesn't have support structures on it. Not only that, Owen Lars and his wife have been dead for 30 plus years. No flippin' way does this gangly-ass farmhouse still exist after all this time. More to the point, if I were Luke Skywalker, why in the absolute f*** would I want a museum of my accomplishments built within 100,000 parsecs of Tatooine or the Lars farm, much less on the planet itself, when I have no interest in being associated with whatever busted-ass kangaroo court that allowed Tatooine to function as long as it did? And why Tatooine? As I'm going to discuss in another video, the idea that anyone would want anything to do with Tatooine before or after the rise and fall of the Galactic Empire is astronomical at best and a cosmic joke at worst. Tatooine is a shithole. Period. Rey and Leia don't have any connection to Tatooine, and Anakin and Luke, understandably and for different reasons, couldn't wait to get the fuck out of there. Oh, and lest we forget, this is also the planet where Anakin's mother got fucking tortured to death, and where Luke's aunt and uncle got incinerated for their troubles. Why the hell would anybody in their right mind want a museum built on this whack-ass sand trap of a planet? If I were Luke Skywalker, and someone asked Leia and I if we wanted a museum built on the Lars farm, I would have said, unless you people still have pod racing on this planet, count us the fuck out of this. But much more importantly, does it not seem a tad bit offensive to anybody else that this little punk ass would feel the need to bury Luke and Leia's lightsabers on a desert planet neither of them gave a damn about? And while we're on the subject, who the fuck told Rey that Luke Skywalker used to live on this farm? Did I miss something? Details, motherfucker. Would it kill you to have some? All in all, to paraphrase Qui-Gon Jinn, the ability to make something look or feel like Star Wars doesn't make your story sophisticated. Basically, this trilogy is Beast Machines if Beast Machines was honest. Yep, I'm gonna go there. Disney's sequel trilogy is the Beast Machines of Star Wars. It thinks it knows what it wants, but it doesn't. As JXE and a few others will be quick to tell you, we've got 3 movies in this trilogy giving each other the middle finger something fierce without having the decency to apologize for it. Replacing Maximize with I Am Transformed is lame. Replacing Luke and Leia with Rey Palpatine is incredibly disgraceful, bordering on disrespectful. And much like with Beast Machines, I'm going to try to pretend that this trilogy doesn't exist. Never mind fitting with the series canon. And yes, I'm including the prequels. I have my problems with the Star Wars prequel trilogy. I don't hate the prequel movies as much as everybody else does, and it's not the cinematic train wreck most of its haters accuse it of being. But I'm not blind to the issues that it does have. But I'll gladly take Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith any day of the week over whatever the hell Disney Star Wars is supposed to be. No, Rogue One doesn't count. Solo doesn't count either. Now I know there are some sequel apologists out there who are going to be like, but Mr. Nitro, Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith are evil! Well, guess what, motherfuckers? From my point of view, the sequel trilogy is evil. And yes, you heard me, I said Phantom Menace and Revenge of the Sith. That other prequel movie can go fuck itself. And before we get to my number 1, here's a few dishonorable mentions, aka runner-ups. Keep in mind, half of these are movies I haven't seen. Independence Day Resurgence from 2016. Pacific Rim did not need a sequel, let alone 2 sequels. And also, you are not Harry Connick Jr., so stop trying to convince me that you're Harry Connick Jr., motherfucker. F9, The Fast Saga, from 2021. I have a complicated relationship with the Fast and Furious films. Some people will say that Tokyo Drift was the last time Fast and Furious was about street racing. I disagree. I think that Tokyo Drift is the only movie in the Fast Saga where street racing is even a plot point, whereas the first 2 Fast and Furious movies were essentially cop movies. I personally think Fast 5 is the strongest of the movies, but Fast and Furious 6 holds the distinction for being the first and only movie in the franchise that I've seen in theaters. It was also the last time it made any sense for me to watch Fast and Furious movies, period. I've only seen Furious 7 once, and you can probably guess why. If Fate of the Furious is the Fast and Furious movie that jumps the shark, F9 is the movie in the franchise that stomps the shark in the nuts.